Good morning to you all. This is Bill coming to you live from the Biblical Lifestyle Center in Texarkana, Texas. It is my honor, it is my privilege, it is my joy to be with you and share this Sabbath day with you. This Sabbath day's message hopefully will be an inspiration to you, an empowerment to you, an encouragement to you. I am not one of those who's here to depress you. I'm not one of those who's here to offend you, if at all possible. But however, I am here to tell you the story that the Torah tells me to tell. I have been given a script, as have all of the people of the Holy One, all the people of the covenant. Our script is not found on the nightly news. It's not found on the internet and different sources or different kinds of social media accounts. Our script is found in the Torah. Our script is found in the written words of the living God. We have the privilege of sharing those words together with one another, and in time, in the proper time, when it's perfect, when it's right, to share them with the world. Most of all, though, before we share them with the world, we have to model them to the world. We have to show them the beauty of the Holy One's ways, the beauty of the Holy One's heart, the beauty of the Holy One's covenant and its ways of living and ways of life. We have to delight in that way ourselves and not try to impose it upon other people because it is in our minds rational or logical or the only appropriate way. We must understand we have been given this precious gift of time on earth. We are eternal beings put into physical bodies for a short time, given a short interval of time to be able to share with the world the majesty and beauty of our King and our Creator, and to call them back to His side, back to His heart, back into His family, and back into the plan of creation. This week we conclude a very precious season, the season of Vayikra, of Leviticus as it's called in English many times. We have been studying this book for 10 parshas, about 8 weeks now. And these sections are right in the center point, the heart of the message of the Torah. They are a little stunning, and they take you aback. You can't rationalize or reason your way through this. You can't try to use your brain in its natural fallen state as it is. You have to trust the Holy One. You have to let the Holy One actually be emanating His holiness, His Kedusha energy, the energies of the heavens that fuel everything going on in the heavens and in His throne room and in His chambers. And let that begin to fuel you. I'm seeing many people say Shabbat Shalom, and I'm saying Shabbat Shalom to you as well. This is a good day. We are in a good season because the Creator of the universe has given us this season. Thank you, Holy One, for another Sabbath. Thank you for another opportunity to influence and impact the earth. The parsha today that we'll study is actually 2 parshas. The first one is the next to last parsha of Sefer Vayikra, also known as the book of Leviticus. That's parsha number 32 of Torah. It's Bhar. It usually is translated on the mountain or from the mountain or of the mountain. And then the second parsha, which begins with chapter 26, verse 3, is Behukatai. It's kind of a tongue twister of a name, but the first letter, the B, is a prefix in or of or from, and then Hukotai is a first person singular version of hukot, in ordinances, instructions, regulations, directives, sometimes called statutes. So in other words, Bahar would be sort of like in the mountain or from the mountain, and Behukatai would be in my statutes or in my ordinances or in my directives or from my directives. The address in the Torah is Leviticus 25:1 through 27:34. It's just 3 chapters that conclude this great book, this third book of Torah. And I entitled this message, this little drash that we'll talk about here in my cheder, my little study hall. What does the future hold for us? What comes next? Let's launch off into an explanation and determination of what that might be. This is the time to shift wallpaper. There are certain things about the Torah that most people do not really understand until you read it and study it for years, sometimes a lifetime, like we are called to do. And we have the privilege of doing that, but it gives us certain understandings of the Torah that the common casual reader does not get. There are cues. There are seasonal cues in the Torah's narrative that tell the reader, the reader who has gone through this a few times, who has a history with it, who has a relationship with that book. These cues are to change the wallpaper, to change the background, to get a new picture. So the reality of the matter is that as we are reading the Torah, we're not just reading the Torah. As we're reading the narratives and we're going along, we're always enhancing that study with a series of other Holy Writ articles from Holy Writ. We have been in a particular wallpaper book, Megillah, as it may be called, since Passover, and that book has been the Song of Songs, or the Song of Solomon, Shir HaShirim in Hebrew. This is the 8 basically chapters of a romance, divine romance, between the Holy One, the Creator of the universe, and His covenant people, and all those who might wish to join His covenant people. This is a season of intense passion and romance, of calling, awakening. And so since Passover, we've been in this awakening mode. Our wallpaper has been the Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon. Oh, the beauty and the majesty and the swelling waves of hunger and delight that this has brought to us. Truly a divine romance. We are privileged to participate in a divine romance, being romanced by the Creator of the universe. When I say romance, I'm not talking about something tawdry you might watch in a Hallmark movie. I'm talking about a relationship pursuit, a relationship development, a relationship passion that the Holy One has. He desires to know us, and He desires for us to know Him. It is beautiful. It is wonderful. It is the most pleasurable thing about life to those of us who have begun to experience it. I encourage you all to pursue the Song of Solomon wallpaper from spring up to this point. This week, in Parshot Bhar Bechukotai, the shift of the wallpaper begins to change. From the Song of Solomon being the backdrop against everything we read and everything we study and everything we meditate upon and everything we try to act out of the Torah, we now change to another wallpaper book, or another Megillah, and that is the book of Ruth. The book of Ruth becomes our focus. There's a cue, there's a literary cue in Parsha Bhar that awakens us that it's time to change. And that's when he starts talking about the redemption of the land, the rescue of the land, and the kinsman redeemer. And that is a verbal cue to change wallpaper. And so we will be then focusing on the book of Ruth for a period of time till we get our next verbal cue. And I won't take time to worry you or think about that. You can be hopefully realizing what your next verbal cue might be. So as we shift from the Song of Solomon and its passion and its divine romance theme of what's in the present to the book of Ruth, we're going to change from the thrill of divine romance being our focus and the joy and delight of knowing and walking with the Holy One, to the prospects of the future, to the idea not just of being in a great relationship with the Holy One, but of living in covenant with Him, of being responsive to Him on a day-by-day basis, in the glorious but also in the mundane, in the warfare as well as in the intimacy, times of intimacy like the Sabbath and the Moedim that we talked about. So we're going from the thrill, our backdrop being the thrill of divine romance, to the backdrop of being awakened to our responsibilities of covenant life and of co-laboring with our King. In other words, it's kind of like the difference between being engaged to be married and having a wedding, and then being married and having a wife or a husband and a spouse and a family that we need to actually engage with more than on a romantic basis. We need to engage and co-labor with and live and learn to adjust our life to. So I'll repeat again. We're changing our backdrop from the thrill of divine romance, from the Song of Solomon ideas, to the covenant living, co-laboring ideas and plans and ways of the book of Ruth. We're changing our focus from the present and our present feelings and how we feel about it and how we are learning things from the Holy One to the seasons to come, seasons when we will have tough times, seasons of separation, seasons of alienation to some degree. But that will not be the end of it because of the nature of the relationship is. There will also be, as the book of Ruth will tell us, an era of redemption, a process and a protocol of redemption. So as we go from romance to redemption, this is the stage. I hope your mind is ready. I hope your heart is open, and let's move forward. How will Sefer Vayikra, how will the book of Leviticus conclude? What will be the way in which the creator of the universe, the writer of this book, the author and the muse, as it were, as when people think of it, for this book, how will he cause it to end? We have been, the people of the covenant, the people we associate with in this book, have been gloriously redeemed. That is our story, that is our song, but that's not the end of our story, and that's not the end of our song. We have been given the greatest of all stories to tell, the greatest of all songs to sing, the greatest of all messages to reveal, the greatest of all dramas to act out on the stage of the world. We have been taken into our king's chambers, the heavenly chambers of the king. We've been shown what his kingdom and what his throne room is like and what the atmosphere is there, the atmosphere of Kedusha, the atmosphere of glory, the atmosphere of joy, the atmosphere of hope, the atmosphere of light. These are the things that we have seen in these past few weeks in the book of Leviticus. We have been taken into the king's chambers, and we've been called to become regular courtiers. We feel like we're belonging, that we have a place in his beauty realm in those chambers of the king. And while we were here, while we've been in this season, the Song of Solomon, a Song of Songs backdrop of romance, we have been trained, and without our even realizing it, as being ambassadors of his kingdom. Wherever we go, we are to carry this Kedusha, this beauty that we have picked up while we have learned to be courtiers in this great kingdom realm. We are now trained, without even understanding how, in the ambassadorship of the kingdom. We are now responsible. We don't even understand what that means yet, but we are responsible for stewarding and emitting into every situation of life the Kedusha energy of his throne room. We are to do it in proper doses, not to overdose the world with his Kedusha. They're not ready for it any more than Nadab and Abihu were. So we have to learn to not only to receive, embrace, and steward the Kedusha, but to emit it in proper doses, realizing the wisdom of the Holy One knows what the world can take. And in so doing, we are to spread his essential messages. And what is that message? It is peace on earth, goodwill toward men. It is, there is a way. Here it is. Walk in it. Wherever your soles of your feet may tread. And now we have been taught these things at Mount Sinai. The book of Vayikra has brought it all to a great conclusion. Now it is almost time to go and change the world. Now we must prepare for impact. What kind of impact? We'll talk about that today. How will we touch the world? How will the world be changed by us if we just follow the Holy One's instructions and keep his view from the mountain, the Bhar, Bahugatai process? But let's stop just for a second and let's relax. And let's enjoy the call to worship, the Baraku that we sing before reading from the Torah. If you know this, please sing along with me. If you don't know it, if you'd rather just listen, just sit back. If you can, close your eyes. Don't do it if you're driving. And just relax and enjoy. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Baed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar banu mikol ha'amin V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah And now would you open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth, so do not hide your commandments from us. Will there be life after Sinai? Will there be life after our season of sitting in the shade, eating apple cakes like is spoken in the Song of Solomon? Will there be a life after Sinai? Can we really expect the Kedusha, the joy, the delight of being caught up in the presence of the Holy One, walking daily in His courts? Can we really expect the Kedusha we have absorbed to be transportable, to be exportable, to go with us into the wilderness beyond, ahead, and go to Eretz Yisrael and beyond? Can we really expect this to be our way, our life, our portion? Well, the words that begin Parsha Kitavo, words that begin Parsha Bhar are Kitavo El Haaretz, when you go into the land. We're going somewhere, beloved. Our seasons are changing. There's a great season of transition coming. We're about to step off into a higher level of impact, a higher level of influence, a higher level of impact upon our world. The final words of last week's Parsha, which was Emor, were something like this. V'yotziu et ha-mechaleh el mikutz lemachaneh, and they took outside the camp the one who had cursed or blasphemed. Vayigemu otu aven, and they heaped up or piled up stones around against him. Uvnei Yisrael asu ka'asher siva Adonai el Moshe. Moshe. Bnei Israel did and come according to all the things the Holy One had instructed Moshe. We're reminded. What a horrible reminder that at the end of Parsha Emor, we had this incident take place. Shocking in its. We thought, why? Well, how can something like this happen in our community? We are still in shock. This is not supposed to happen among us. We are the children of a living God. We are the sons of the covenant and the daughters of the covenant. We are the children of our King. We are living at Sinai. This should not happen. These kinds of things should not happen with a blasphemer. And so we are dealing now with the toxic fallout, the bloody aftermath of the Ben Ish Mitzrayim blasphemer incident. And what went wrong, we have to ask ourselves. Now, every time something goes wrong in our community or in our world, the ways of the nations, the ways of the Goyim, the ways of the Gentiles, are to sit and judge who did something wrong, who was at fault, who is to blame, and to feel let this emotion of vengeance rise up in us and direct our negative energy and our emotions toward the one or ones or culture that we think is responsible, that we want to blame, that we can take any responsibility for learning from the matter away by focusing on who did what wrong and who's to blame and who we can criticize and judge as a result of the situation. That's the way of the world. That's the way of the nations. That's the way of the Goyim. That's the way of the Gentiles. We have a different way. When we have something happen in our community that is shocking, that is not supposed to happen, that is a weight upon our hearts and our lives. We have it happen all the time, right? How are we supposed to respond? Not like the nations. We're not supposed to behave like the nations. We're not supposed to start looking for someone to blame, to criticize, to judge. We're supposed to ask what went wrong, but not from the standpoint of who did it, of why, what is happening, what is the problem, what is the danger, and how can we prevent this from happening? How can we fix it? How can we make it better? How can we cause the blip on this radar screen to come back into the rhythm of the Holy One? How can we begin to bring tikkun, to make a restoration, a redemption, a healing, a return to the ways of the Holy One out of this situation? How can we learn from the mistakes that were made? not judge the mistakes that were made, but to learn from them. So we have to ask ourselves when we read something in Torah like this, some incident that we would rather it was not in there, that we would not have to know that there was something like this happened in our community that got out of hand and caused damage in our community. When these things happen, we read them in Torah, we have to say, why is this recorded in the Torah? Why did the brilliant author of the Torah decide this needed to be in his narrative, that it needs to be something we read and study every year at a certain time of the year? And particularly this, the blasphemer narrative, is something we're supposed to read every year at the conclusion of our Song of Solomon time. These are what can go wrong during this seasons of divine romance. And we are to read this every year during our season of counting the Omer, as it's called, Seferit Omer, the idea of our getting ready for the wheat harvest, getting ready for the divine appointment of Shavuot, when we meet with the Holy One and thank Him for the grains that He gave to us and the foods that He's provided to us, and recommit ourselves in the hot of summer. And then it's always all preparation for the heat and the anger and the emotions run amok of the heat of the summertime. I realize for you who are watching from the southern hemisphere, my dear friends in Africa, in Malaysia, in the Philippines, in Australia, in New Zealand, thank you for joining us. And I realize you're reading this and you're looking at this from the southern hemisphere's perspective. And these things here, what you're getting ready for is not the heat of the summer, but the cold of the winter. Well, there's a lesson to be learned from the coldness of the winter, as well as a lesson to be learned from the heat and the sweat and the sand fleas of the summer. So, understand as we're changing seasons, we're changing focuses. We are supposed to learn something and take something away from the presence of this blasphemer, Ben Ish Mitzrayim's lesson of the book of Leviticus. We're supposed to learn something, have a takeaway, from this reminder of the anti-Kedusha realm in which we're called to live. No matter how much Kedusha we absorb, as long as we're in this life, we will deal with anti-Kedusha. We will deal with the blasphemer. We will deal with those who are toxic in their emotions and their attitudes and their beliefs, who are toxic in their prejudices and their biases. We will deal with those who cannot overcome the ethnicity issue of how they were born, the color of their skin, the pigmentation in their skin. They cannot overcome the fact that there can be differences, and theirs is not the only one, and theirs is not the best one, and there is no best one, and that all of us are human beings, and all of us have divine spirits that don't have color and don't have those things. We have to learn that there is a anti-Kedusha force in the world. Some of it's ideology as opposed to ethnicity. Some of it's philosophy and religion. And then all these different factors that cause us to set ourselves up in little camps and divide and choose our interest over the other interest. These things are anti-Kedusha, anti-holiness, anti-kingdom, anti-covenant to us. They are anathema to us, but we need to understand we will deal with them all of our lives, every day, every year on the earth, and especially in the times of high emotion, in the summertime. And the times, that's mostly anger and passion and lust. In the wintertime, it's mostly depression and sadness and feelings of isolation. So you have the different things that when the emotions run amok, the anti-Kedusha comes forth in powerful ways. We need to learn how to deal with it and not overreact to it. This week's sub-theme, sort of our message that we need to keep in mind as we face these anti-Kedusha explosions as they come about to us. And as we look forward to the future and what our calling is and what our mission is on earth, here's what the Holy One says, beginning with Leviticus 25, verse 17, part B of it. It says, fear your God, Yahweh, see Him for who He is, and respect Him. Fear your God, for I am the Holy One your God, He says. I saw my statutes, live in and build, and make visible my statutes and what they mean. And then shamar my decrees, my forward-looking, solution-minded decrees, my mitzvot, and build them as well. And then, as you do that, you will dwell in the land. The talk you will do through radical trust As you do the Torah, as you do the statutes, and you do the mitzvot, and the commandments, as the English people love to call them, as you do these things which are my directives of the way in which you are to walk, the way to walk, as you do this, you will dwell in the land, betok, lebetok, by and through radical trust. And this will become your testimony, your trust in the Holy One. And then, he says, the land will yield its fruit. Then, when you fear the Holy One, let him be your God. When you treasure and build his statutes, and you cherish and treasure and guard his commandments, and you build them also, and you will dwell in the land. Betok, and the land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill, and you will dwell there. Lebetok, by and through radical trust. Now, this is the theme. The living in the land that we are called to do, the Ruth story, when we go back home, when we go back to our land, when we go back, we're to live by trust, not by our own efforts and not by the things we learned in the nations, except for the lessons we learned from the Holy One about the nations. We are to go, and then when that happens, we will have a great impact upon the land. Our responsiveness to the Torah will bring about great things, great fruitfulness. Be fruitful and multiply will happen, and that will be our calling in our ways. Well, let's go back and talk just a few minutes before we get too deep. What has happened in the last few days to kick off the tabernacle era? Because one of the key factors that's happened in the book of Leviticus is the tabernacle has stepped into operation. The priesthood is now working. The korbanot are being brought. The altar, the fire is on the altar. The smell of incense, frankincense is in the air. The sweet smell of all the things the Holy One has done. There's much activity. We have this open for business parlor of the Creator of the universe. Heaven has come to earth in physical land and space, and we have a vestibule of the kingdom of heaven, a beachhead of the kingdom of heaven upon the earth. And so that has been what's happened in Leviticus, and how we're trying to deal with that. The call has been to approach, to come near. We have been called. That was the verbal cue that started the study, the backdrop meditations on the Song of Solomon. When we heard the call, Vayikra, when the Holy One called to us, we began to say, what else? There is the call of the bridegroom to his bride in the Song of Solomon. So that was our verbal cue for that. The call came to approach, and then the lessons began to teach us how to traffic in Kedusha, how to experience it, how to delight in it. That was the first 5-6 chapters of the book. That was the Korbanot discourse, and we learned how to overcome the 5 holes in our soul, individually and collectively, and begin to traffic, to approach the holy things that are in that tabernacle, that are in this vestibule or on earth as it is in heaven. And then we have the 8th day narrative, the narrative of the 8th day of the tabernacle's operation. The first day, basically, ordinary human beings could come in, and that was the day that fire fell from heaven. The blessings of blessings of Aaron, blessings of Moshe, fire falls from heaven, and then we have the stunning narrative of Nadab and Abihu. Following the Nadab and Abihu bookend, we have the Kedusha discourse, the longest running narrative, actually not a narrative, the longest running portion of divine speech, reproduced divine speech, word for word, reproduced divine speech in the history of mankind. Anywhere in the Torah or anywhere else, you don't find this long a season of continuous flowing speech from the Creator of the universe is being copied word for word by Moshe. And so the Kedusha discourse took place. And then the other bookend after the Kedusha discourse was the blasphemer narrative we read last week and concluded with last week. The Ben Ish Mitzrayim, the son of the Egyptian man and the Hebrew woman. And that was our anti-Kedusha illustration, our wake-up call that we deal with anti-Kedusha all the time, and we must deal with it responsibly in accordance with the Holy One's plan, not our emotional response, and not our theological response, and not our religious response. We must deal with it in accordance with the instructions of the Holy One. The Torah is our guide. Now we have the next phase, what we're going to have in Parshas Bhar Bahukatai, as we prepare ourselves to head out into the desert and go toward the promised land, the land promised to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and then to our destiny beyond. The first thing we have is what I call the Kingdom of Heaven beachhead discourse, or just the Kingdom beachhead discourse. This is a series of, basically it's a chapter or so, a couple of chapters perhaps, that deal with turning our hearts toward home. The Holy One has not been talking to us much about the land of Israel in the book of Leviticus. He's mostly been talking about Song of Solomon stuff, the stuff we're doing at the mountain, the idea of getting close to him and learning how to stay close to him. Now he's going to turn our attention ahead. This is why we change our focus to the book of Ruth. He's the kingdom beachhead. He's going to say there is another kingdom beachhead beside this one. And it's actually the greater kingdom beachhead. That's the land of Israel. Oh, do you understand how wonderful, how important in the plan of the Creator the land of Israel is? So he's going to introduce us again, turn our eyes away from we're going to get a mountain view, up on the mountain, and look outward and towards the land of Israel. And our hearts are supposed to begin to arise, awaken toward a destiny in that land, toward the beauty and the majesty. The call of that land to us should be very powerful, turning our hearts toward home, to our land of milk and honey. And turning our focus then, the other part of the Kingdom Beachhead Discourse, is to turn our focus away from what's wrong with the world to his plan for fixing the world, for making tikkun, for restoring the creation to its Edenic state of beauty and fruitfulness and shalom, and redeeming mankind. So the focus will turn to redemption. We'll hear so much about redemption. We'll almost be overwhelmed by the details of redemption. And there's a price for redemption. And that price depends upon the circumstances, but is always within reach. It is exorbitant, it seems, high, but not unpayable, undoable. And then after the Kingdom Beachhead Discourse of the 25 and 26 chapters of Leviticus, Vayikra, we will have the stunning Takaka discourse, Takaka admonition, a call to teshuvah, a call to seriousness, to alertness, to soberness, sobriety. We have certain responsibilities once we step off into that desert and into the promised land, and then wherever else we may go, we have responsibilities, and they carry levels of accountability. And so the Tokaka says that when we go, we have to carry this passion for the Torah that we learned on Mount Sinai, and we need to keep it and hold on to it. And there will be a challenge of anti-kedusha at every step of the way, even when we get to Eretz Israel. The Tokaka tells you this is what will happen. This is the way it will come down. This is the blessings of the Holy One, the plan I have for you, for good. But if you choose another way, you choose to walk against my Torah, my ways, my instructions, then there will be another way. And you will find the consequences of that are not because I hate you or angry at you or reject you. The consequences will come because that's what happens whenever you walk away from the world and the ways and the words and the love and the person of the Holy One, and you go your own separate way and do the things the nations do. You follow ways of ethnicity. You follow the ways of culture. You follow ways of religion. You follow ways of theology. You follow ways of philosophy and science and medicine. You follow all these things, and they become your important North Star. When that happens, that releases negativity into the earth, and you reap what you sow. That's the story of the Takaka. And then we have finally the 27th chapter, the final chapter of the book of Leviticus, the Geula discourse. This is when the Geula means redemption, and the idea that everything can be redeemed. The price, but everything has a price, an erech, the price or the cost of redemption. We'll talk about those things. That's what our story is. The calling, first of all, though, we deal with the calling of our homeland. Kitava. El ha'aretz, when you go into the land, when you come into the land. Now remember, back in back in Leviticus 25, it said, I am the Holy One your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan and to be your God. This portion, this connection with the land, of Israel, this specific land bridge between Africa and Asia and Europe, a very strategic piece of real estate. Our connection with that very strategic piece of real estate has been going on since Genesis 12. To a land, he told Abraham, I will go with me. Lech lecha, go out with, and I will show you to a land I will show you. And this land I will show you is still a major factor and will always be. It is the essence of the kingdom beachhead. It is the place the Holy One desires to start everything and make his stage for the rest of the world to see, and then to be the beachhead from which the peaceful invasion is launched into the world. Peaceful invasion of the kingdom of heaven and the Kedusha soldiers of the covenant. Well, the calling of the homeland is part one, and we're going to hopefully be caught up with an affection, awaken a desire to touch and see and to think of and to meditate on and to be part of the land of Israel. And then the second thing that we focus on in these two parshas is the calling to participate in the grand plan. The grand plan for the redemption of mankind as a species, bloodline by bloodline, household by household, family by family, individual by individual, as many as will come. This is the grand plan. We are called to participate in it. And that's not all, but also as we're participating in the grand plan for the redemption of mankind as a species, we're also participating in a greater plan for the restoration of all creation, all of Earth's ecosystem and beyond, to beauty, fruitfulness, and shalom, like unto in the Garden of Eden. Im b'chukatai telechu, if and when you walk in my ordinances, my statutes, my laws, my ways. Im b'chukatai telechu, great things will happen. Impact will truly occur. All right. Let us change our focus into then where we are going. Let us turn our eyes toward the land of the patriarchs. I know we live in different regions of the world, probably. Very few of you that are listening will actually live in Israel right now. Most of us live in North America, South America, Central America, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, in the Philippines, in the Pacific Rim countries. I know that. And so now the issue is wherever you are, whatever land you are exiled in, turn your eyes toward home. Turn your eyes toward the land of Abraham, of Yitzhak, of Yaakov, the land promised from before the foundation of the world, the land which is designed to be the beachhead of the kingdom of heaven, the stage upon which all the acts of redemption are acted out, the homeland to which Mashiach will come and does come and has spoken and will speak. Turn our hearts toward home. The Kingdom Beachhead Discourse is the first aspect of what we'll read. And the first thing it tells us is about a Sabbath, a special Sabbath that will happen when we come. This is about impact. When we come into the land, carrying the Kedusha, walking in the statutes, walking in the ordinances of the Holy One, living his lifestyle, something wonderful will happen to the land of Israel. We will have an impact upon it. All creation groans in eager expectation for the sons of the Eternal One to be revealed. This will be a picture whenever we come into the land will enjoy a special Sabbath. It will breathe a sigh of relief. They are here. Finally, the abominations of the Canaanites will be purged. Finally, the blood guilt of all the innocent bloodshed that the Canaanites and the other cultures have fought, because they fought these wars over this land, even from the time of the first war in Genesis 14 of the kings of the north versus the kings of the south. An accumulation of wealth in the areas of Sodom and Gomorrah. All the bloodshed, all the perversions, all the abominations, all the corruptions were focused upon this area, this very strategic land bridge. And our arrival will signal a time to relax and to allow a refreshing to take place and a renewal and rejuvenation of the land to take place. And the Kingdom Beachhead Discourse starts with the impact we are to have upon the land. And then it changes, shifts slightly to another fact. It So after we come, we are to initiate a new level of stewardship. We are to initiate a new calendar, so to speak, for the land. And this calendar for the land will be periods of 7 years. Every 7th year, we are to work the land. We are to tend the vines, and we are to prune the trees, and we are to render harvest of them, and feed the world for 6 years. Feed each other and feed the world for 6 years. But on the 7th year, this is a recurring cycle forever and ever, as long as we're in the land, we will have what we've been chosen to call a Shemitah. Shemitah, which basically means a rest. It'll stop. It'll rest. and the idea on the 7th year is that we don't plant. We don't sow seed. We don't tend vines. We don't prune vines and we don't have a regular harvest that we do commercially. What we do, the land is allowed to produce whatever it produces. We have to trust it will produce enough. It will produce enough for daily bread, not for some sort of harvest we store up or can or preserve. It will be a daily bread kind of an approach, from the times of the wheat, to the times of the vine, to the times of the tree, to the different harvests of the land. Each one will provide enough, not for us, but also for the poor, and for the widow in our land, and for the fatherless in our land, and for the foreigner who is passing through, and the traveler who is walking alongside the road, and for the animals and the insects and the birds of the land. All there will be enough produced, just voluntarily, without our effort. Now, I know this sounds crazy. We are called to a level of trust way beyond anything the nations know. We have to actually believe the Holy One, and trust the Holy One, and know the Holy One will do what he says he will do. The Shemitah, every 7th year. That's not the only thing. We're going to start from the sevens, or from every 7th year. We're also going to count 7 sevens. So the 7th year comes the 14th, the 21st, the 28th, they go on, 30. I'd like counting the Omer, but we're going to do it with the years. And it's a protocol, and after 49, after 7 sevens, we're going to have something special. And the Holy One says, now, I know this sounds radical to you. You're going to trust me on this, but there will be a Yovel, a 50th year. The 50th Yovel means the sound of the shofar. It means a movement that comes, a flowing movement that comes, a rhythmic flow, a wave, as it were, that comes pictured by the air coming out of a shofar, making a sound. The Yovel, or Jubilee, as it's called in the English language by many people after the King James era, but it's Yovel. Yovel is this idea of the 50th year, and during the 50th year, we see that amazing things happened. Land reverts to its original Hebrew owners. The land of Israel does. The land of Israel reverts. And so wherever you are, you go home. This is not a matter of you're free. This is a matter of you're now called back to your responsibility, called back to your biological family and to your homeland and to your home area, your home tract, and back to responsibility to the land. Whatever it calls you to leave, whatever agreements you entered into are canceled, and you go back. You go back without debts, but you go back with one debt. That is the debt you owe to the Holy One, to care for, to tend, to steward that land. And that is the most important thing you could do. In the process, there are also provisions made for the poor and for the stranger, because there are covenants running with the land. The covenants running with the land say that always this land is dedicated. The model land, the beachhead land, is dedicated to providing for the poor and for the stranger that walks through it, and for the widow and for the fatherless. And this land is so precious and so much the property of the Holy One and cannot be given away to strangers or foreigners that it has restrictions on transfer and rights of redemption that make sure that there will not be a transfer out of the people of Israel or out of the covenant family that was established for it at any time. All our responsibilities, our delight in, but our responsibilities regarding the land. And then we have rules of engagement will be given to us this week about dealings with the Goyim. We are not to hide ourselves completely from the foreigners, from the nations, from the ethnicities of this world, from the other belief systems, the other ideologies. We are to live amongst them, but we are to deal with them wisely and responsibly. Okay, Bhar, lifting our eyes. fixing our focus on home. The homeland, Israel. Do you love it? You pray for its peace. Now, its peace is shalom of Jerusalem. The peace of the land of Israel is not peace as most people think of it. We can have peace in the midst of war. But the kind of shalom, the kind of peace we're talking about, is a congruence, the conjunction of 5 important factors at high levels. Now, the 5 factors that have to conjoin for there to be shalom in Israel or in Jerusalem. First of all, the Torah must be active, operative, and alive. People must listen to it and follow it. Now, there are levels, of course, and there must be at least some significant level of Torah observance. The second of the 5 factors that must conjoin, have a conjunction in order for there to be fruitfulness and prosperity and shalom in the land, is that the people of Israel must be in that land. The people of the covenant must be in that land. Now, not only the people of the covenant, perhaps, but because the mixed multitude, the others that come along, the foreigners, the strangers, the Ruths that come forth over the times, and the different folks who will come and join us. But there must be a strong Hebrew presence of the seed of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob. So we have the first conjunctive element is the Torah. The second is the presence of a significant portion of the seed of Abraham. The third is the land itself. The land must be in the possession of, under the authority of the seed of Abraham, and under the authority of the Torah. The Torah must be its constitution. And then that's 3 of them, the first 3. And the fourth one is the Messiah. There must be an evidence, a living conversation about, and a living presence of the Messiah. Now, we're going to see that the Messiah calculation that we start with will be the bones of Yosef. He is our Messiah figure that is portraying and picturing for the Messiah to come, the Messiah that we believe is Yeshua HaMashiach. But the initial evidence of the Messianic presence was the story of this Redeemer, the story of this reconciler, the story of this great leader, Yosef, who comes in the coffin in his bones and was buried there. So we have these 4 factors. And then what else do we have? We have the Holy One in his presence, his manifest presence. When we come into the land this time, it will be in accordance with our narrative and our story as we go into the next book. We're going to find that we come in with the tabernacle, the Mishkan, the abiding manifest presence of the Holy One. We must always have the manifest presence of the Holy One, the Messiah, the constitution of the land being the Torah, the people of the seed of Abraham being significantly present. These are the things we must have, and the land itself must be responding to those factors. Now, here's the key factor about the land. As goes the people of Israel, as goes the people of Israel and the Torah, as goes the people of Israel and their belief in Messiah, as goes the people of Israel and their following of the ways of the Holy One, so goes the rest of the species of humankind, and so goes creation. We are so connected. We are designed to be connected with it. As goes the hope in the hearts of Bnei Israel, so goes the species of humankind. Hope and trust. The national anthem of Israel, of course, is Hatikvah. It means the hope. And the hope is for the peace of Jerusalem. The hope is for these 5 things to conjoin that I've talked about, conjoin and be present and growing and seeing the world change as a result. See, when we learn about our connection with the land, it's not just history. It's not even just prophecy. Our connection with the land of Israel is covenant. We have a covenant with the creator of the universe to make the most of that beachhead of the kingdom of heaven on earth, to make the land of Israel holy, to bring the Kedusha energy of Torah and Sinai and the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the manifest presence of the Holy One, and the ways of the Creator to the land of Israel. Both the soil and the atmosphere of that land are something really, really special. So we start out with the parsha this week. with Moshe standing on Sinai, looking eastward toward the land of Israel, anticipating life for us and for us all, and for our children's children, and for the world in a land like no other. This is the Bhar briefing, the briefing from up on the mountain, seeing the higher perspective than just what's going on a day-by-day basis where we are, seeing the manifest plan unfolding in the land. So the purpose and the focus of the Bhar briefing is what we're to do and once we establish our presence in the land of the patriarchs, which is still, at the time we start reading in this portion, several hundred miles to our east. But the Holy One plans that what he started in Egypt will be finished in the land of Israel. And he's going to escort us to that land, and he's going to entrust that land to our stewardship. And he's going to let us be the guardians of that land bridge that links Europe, Asia, Africa, and of course through them, all nations and all continents and all peoples of the world. He wants us to occupy and use that most strategic of all parcels of real estate on planet Earth as a beachhead from which he can launch a campaign of Kedusha and goodwill, peace on earth, goodwill toward men, a campaign that will offer healing and restoration to every hill and valley, every desert and river, every island and timber ridge of earth, and to every family and household and individual of humanity, all who will listen. We're going to a land of milk and honey. As goes Eretz Israel, as goes the land of Israel, and as go the people of Israel, so goes the whole of creation. And as goes the city of Jerusalem, the holy city, as goes that ridge on Mount Moriah, so go Bnei Israel, the people of Israel, and Eretz Israel. We are going to learn some principles of radical ecosystem management protocol. As I have been trying to express and many others are, the Holy One is not a judgmental God who's up there trying to make everybody morally right. He is an ecosystem manager, a creator who wants his ecosystem that he created to continue to operate smoothly and will do whatever is necessary and appoint whoever is necessary to make sure the ecosystem continues in operation and nurture in its fullness, reaches its fullness. So, Bhar consists of 57 verses that introduce the Holy One's plan for restoring Eretz Israel, the land of Israel first, and ultimately the world, to the state of beauty and fruitfulness and shalom for which he created it. Bhar, opening lines. V'adaber Adonai al Moshe Bhar Sinai le'emor. And the Holy One spoke to Moshe at or from Mount Sinai, saying, Dabar el bnei Israel ve'amarta eleihem, speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, Ki tavo'u el ha'aretz ani noten lachem, when you come into the land which I give them, v'shabta ha'aretz Shabbat le'Adonai. Then the land, or the earth, will Sabbath a Sabbath unto the Holy One. Oh, will Sabbath a Sabbath just because we come there, just because we go there. What kind of land is this? What kind of land is it that responds to human beings flowing in the ways and the will of God? What kind of land is the Holy One taking us to? Remember in Genesis 12:1, the Holy One said to Abram, go out for yourself, like out of your country, away from your family, and away from your father's house to a land I will show you. Oh, this is that land. In Genesis 13:14-17. And the Holy One said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are. It's kind of like Parshat Bhar. Look your eyes now. Look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see, I give to you. First, you have to see it, beloved. Do you see it? Do you see it in your heart? And you see it in your mind's eye? Can you see it in your passion? Can you see it in your spirit? Look, all the land which you see, I will give to you and to your seed forever. And I will make your seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your seed could also be numbered. The Sabbath that our arrival will bring is such an amazing thing. He says, V'veta ha'aretz Shabbat la'Adonai, the land will Sabbath, the Sabbath to the Holy One. Are you ready for this kind of impact, beloved? Or would you rather kind of live with your own little ways? We are designed to have such an impact upon our world. And all creation is groaning in eager expectation for the sons of the Eternal One to be revealed, to be made manifest. As go you in your relationship with the Holy One, and your relationship to the Torah, and your relationship with Messiah, and with the seed of Abraham, so goes the land of Israel, and ultimately so goes the ecosystem of planet Earth. We are designed to have such an impact. First of all, impact on the space that we just talked about. The impact on, first of all, the land of Israel, the physical land of Israel, the land he showed to Avram, the land he had Avram walk, the length and the height and the depth and the breadth of, the land he told us we had to see, the space. Everywhere the sole of our feet shall tread, we're supposed to leave a scent, the sound of our voice, the sound of his voice, and written words and actions. As we travel along, we are supposed to impact the world of physical space. We're also supposed to impact the time in which we are given to live. As we said, we are eternal beings, eternal spirits that are given a few days, a few moments, a few years, a season upon the earth to dwell in physical bodies. As we dwell in these physical bodies, and as we bring the heavens through into physical things, we're to join cycles in progress, not just the cycles of seed time and harvest, or those are what we talk about a lot. Also cycles of kingdom perspective and mission time. What is the growing kingdom? What is the descending, leaving kingdom? Who are the powers of the world? And what are the motives and the priorities of the rest of the world? We enter into cycles. We see things rising and things falling. Nation rising against nation cycles. And we see cycles of profane and fallen human agendas. We see education cycles. We see indoctrination cycles. We see propaganda cycles. We see emotion stirring cycles, hate race baiting cycles. We see class envy baiting cycles. We see gender jealousy and confusion cycles. We see these. We enter into these cycles, and we're supposed to impact them beautifully. Dosed kedusha into them. Dosed kedusha into them. Okay, so we got space we're supposed to impact. We have a season of time that we're given to make that impact. And also, we're supposed to have an impact on the ecosystem species, the species of this ecosystem that we coexist with, the birds and the insects and the animals and the beasts. We are told in Genesis 1:28b that the purpose of the Holy One for man was to have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. That means that the covenant calling has not changed. We're still to have impact, a positive impact upon all the species with which we interact. Not to take them for granted or use them without understanding we are here to steward them and to bless them and to be a guidance, to keep them pure. Now, the fourth thing is, of course, human beings themselves. We are to have impact upon the fellow human beings that we meet along the way. Whether we meet them in person, whether they hear the sound of our voice, whether they read the things we write, whether they are on the internet with us, whether they're in workplaces with us, or whether they're in schools with us, wherever we are, we're supposed to have an impact upon them that is releasing dosed kedusha into them, giving them hope, giving them a focus on redemption rather than a focus upon blame and hatred and the things the world focuses on. We're to have a human interaction with every level of humanity. We are to be a blessing to every family on the face of the earth. That's the Abrahamic call, the essence of the beginning of the Abrahamic call. And so it spreads out from families to bloodlines. It spreads out from bloodlines to nations and cultures and ethnicities. It spreads out. We are to have a blessing effect upon the individuals within all these levels and the families within all these levels. We're not supposed to break apart families We're supposed to bring blessing to the family and the bloodline. And we're to do it according to the Holy One's methodologies, his ways, his plans, his ordinances, his directives. With regard to the Shemitah, the 7th years, Shesh Shanim Tizra Zadeka, 6 years you are to plant your fields, like everyone else does. V'shesh shanim tizmor karmeka ve'asavta et tevuata. And for 6 days you are to prune your vineyards, and for 6 years, rather, you are to prune your vineyards, and you are to harvest your crops. Uv'shanaha v'shva'it Shabbat Shabbaton yeh. But the 7th year is a Sabbath of Sabbath. You understand? Year, the earth also receives the blessing and the delight and the holiness of the Sabbath. The idea is not just to keep it to ourselves, but to spread it to the places we go, to the cities we live in, to the realms we live, obviously to the land of Israel primarily, but also we're spread a little taste of the Sabbath into the world. Let the world enjoy the fruit of the Sabbath as well, the earth. La'aretz Shabbat Ladonai, for the land is to have a Sabbath unto the Holy One. Do you love the Sabbath? Do you love this special season and time of holiness and love? And when we interact with and relate to the Holy One and return, refocus upon his plan and return to his person and to his love, the land needs just exactly that. The place where you live, the city where you live, needs it as much as your heart does. Sadecha lo tizrah, you are not to plant your fields in that 7th year. V'charmeka lo tizmor, you are not to prune your vineyards. Et sifeach ketzerka lo tixlor, you are not to harvest the crops that grow on their own in some commercial manner. Ve'et ineve nizreka le titzvor, and you are not to gather the grapes that grow on the unpruned vines. Shanat Shabbaton yeh larat, since it is a year of Shabbat, a year of delight, of rest, of restoration for the land. A recurring Sabbath of the land. No planting seeds, no pruning trees, all the things. Why? Because you see, we trust the Holy One. And if we are doing what he tells us to do, if we are living as he tells us to live, if we are being who he called us to be, the land will respond to us with great provision for all us and for the world, and for the poor, and for the widow, and for the foreigner, and for the stranger and sojourner. Now, finally, the parsha, the latter part of the parsha, Bechukotai, talks about, it has 13 verses about if we do the things he tells us to do, if we live as he tells us to live. He says the land will respond to you in beautiful ways. The heavens will respond to you in beautiful ways. You will respond to one another in beautiful ways. 13 verses that show as close to a heaven on earth as you can imagine. Earth begins to respond to the heavenly flow of Kedusha, and we see great things take place. If we ended after the 13, we would all be happy. But there are then, I believe it's 29 verses that show, but if you did not, if you choose to reject my Torah and my ways and my presence among you, if you choose to walk in your own way and be contrary to me or be adversarial to me in some way, then you will start in motion a series of negative effects. I will remove my hand of protection and blessing from you and allow you to experience you will reap what you sowed. And that sowing that you did of anti-Kedusha that you went along with the blasphemer in his ways and his ideas of diminishing and marginalizing my involvement and my plan, then as you do that, you'll see how unfruitful this world can be and how unforgiving the thorn and thistle world can be and the other nations and the other cultures can be, all because you chose not to walk in my ways. Well, beloved, let's not do that. We now are called to accountability, to awareness, to sobriety. Oh, it's such a joy to walk with the Holy One. And his promises to us, if we do so, as we do so, when we do so, are unbelievably good. And his plan to employ us in his great redemptive and restorative mission upon the earth is so wonderful. Let's don't sell it for the things of this culture or our own ideas of what's right and wrong. Let's live his way. we have come to the conclusion of Parsha, of Sefer Vayikra, of the book of Leviticus. As we come to the conclusion of this book, we will do as we do with the conclusion of each book. We will say, Hazak, Hazak, V'nichazek. Be strengthened. Be strengthened. And may we all be strengthened together. Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.